Okay, in this Smartboard activity, we're going to learn about adverbs. Students will be able to identify adverbs in given sentences, and they'll also be able to identify verbs modified by adverbs. So, an adverb is a part of speech that modifies a verb. That means that it tells us how, when, or where an action takes place. In this first sentence, the artist painted carefully. Carefully is the adverb that modifies our verb painted. It tells us how the artist painted, which was carefully. The next sentence is soon she displayed her work. The adverb soon modifies our verb displayed, and it tells us when she displayed her work. And then the last sentence, her paintings hung there. Our adverb there modifies our verb hung by telling us where her paintings were hung. So, these next sentences we'll go through together. Mary Beth always helps her mother. Well, first, what we need to do, let me get me a pretty colored pen here. Okay, so Mary Beth always helps her mother. First, we need to identify our verb, which is helps. Okay, now we need to go and find our adverb. We need to find the word that modifies helps by telling us either how, when, or where Mary Beth helps her mother. So Mary Beth does not modify helps. It does not tell us when, where, or how. Now always tells us either when, where, or how. Always tells us when Mary Beth helps her mother, which is always. And we'll go to the next slide here. And you see where they have always highlighted. So always was our adverb. And it modified helps by telling us when. Okay, the next sentence. Jess patiently waited for the train. So here's our verb, waited. And now we need to find the word that modifies our verb by telling us how, when, or where. We know that just does not tell us how, when, or where. For does not tell us how, when, or where. The does not tell us how, when, or where. And the train does not tell us how, when, or where. So that leaves us with patiently. So, just patiently waited for the train. Patiently is our adverb. Waited is our verb. Now we just need to find out how patiently modifies our verb. So, does patiently tell us how she waited for the train, when she waited for the train, or where she waited for the train? Well, patiently does not tell us where. We don't know from the word patiently where she waited. We don't know when she waited for the train. But we do know how she waited for the train, because she waited patiently. Then Lucy became a terrific teacher. So first we need to go and find our verb, which is became. Okay, so now that we've identified our verb, we need to find the word that modifies our verb. So, then Lucy became a terrific teacher. Possibly. Lucy, does that tell us how, when, or where? No. A, does that tell us how, when, or where? No. Terrific, does that tell us how, when, or where? Teacher, does that tell us how, when, or where? No. So then we go back to this first one, then. Does that tell us how, when, or where? Yes, it does. Then is our adverb. So, now that we've identified our adverb, we know this because it either tells us how, when, or where. So, does then tell us how she became a terrific teacher? No, it does not. But does it tell us when she became a terrific teacher? Yes, it does. When did she? Then. Then she became a terrific teacher. The older man lived nearby. Once again, we find our verb. Would be lived. Okay, and now we need to find the word that modifies our verb. Does the tell us how, when, or where? No, it does not. Does older tell us how he lived, where he lived, or when he lived? No, it does not. Does man tell us any of those? No. So that leaves us with nearby. So we know nearby tells us either how he lived, when he lived, or where he lived. So now that we've identified nearby as our adverb, we need to identify whether it tells us how, when, or where. We know that the older man lives nearby. So is that how the older man lives? No. Is that when the older man lives? No. Where does the older man live? Well, the older man lives nearby. That's where. A hired man worked there for a while. Once again, we find our verb, which is worked. And now we need to find the verb, the word that modifies our verb. So, we'll start at the beginning. A does not tell us how, when, or where. Hired does not tell us how, when, or where. Man does not tell us how, when, or where. There. Does there tell us how, when, or where? Yes, it does. There modifies our verb worked. It modifies it by telling us where. Where did the hired man work? He worked there for a while. Okay, so the directions for the next slide say that you will see a sentence with the adverb highlighted. We are to choose the verb that it describes. I'll do the next couple with you. So, this sentence, we have eventually Mark completed the difficult assignment. They already have eventually highlighted for us, which tells us that this is the adverb. Now we need to find the word that this adverb modifies. Well, so here's our sentence. Mark completed the difficult assignment. Well, eventually does not modify Mark. Eventually does not modify the. Eventually does not modify difficult. And it does not modify assignment. So we look at the word completed. Does eventually tell us how, when, or where Mark completed? Yes, it does. Eventually, Mark completed the difficult assignment. Completed is our verb. Eventually modifies it by telling us when Mark completed the difficult assignment. Mark completed it eventually. So, Sarah worked hard on her colorful painting. Here's our adverb. Now, to identify our verb, well, hard does not modify Sarah. It does not modify on, or her, or colorful, or painting. So it leaves us with worked. It tells us either how, when, or where Sarah worked. And yeah, Sarah worked hard on her colorful painting. This tells us how Sarah worked. She worked hard. So you get the idea about adverbs. And we know that the adverb will always tell us either how, when, or where. And the adverb modifies the verbs in a sentence.